Keep her in the truck. That one line, barked across a briefing room at FOB Kestrel, would echo for years. Sergeant First Class Marcus Keller thought he was putting a transport driver in her place. He had no idea he was setting the stage for a story that would silence every doubt. Specialist Jenna Rook Morales, 5'4" in her boots. 27 years old, had never looked like a warfighter to most of the convoy. She was just another motor pool soldier, useful behind a wheel, forgettable beyond that. But they didn't know the training buried in her past. They didn't know about Riverside Range. Back in rural Georgia, her uncle Miguel Talon Morales had built more than a shooting range. For contractors and off-the-books teams, it was a crucible, vehicle dynamics, mounted weapons, how to flip an ambush on its head. Jenna learned it all before she was old enough to drive a civilian car, where other kids wasted weekends at the mall. She was stripping down a MK-19 40mm grenade launcher blindfolded, learning the weight of a belt of grenades like most kids learned the weight of a baseball bat. And behind it all was tragedy. At 14, Jenna lost her father, Master Sergeant Elias Morales, in a convoy ambush in Iraq. His M-ATV took an RPG hit. His last transmission was calm, professional, trying to maneuver even as flames swallowed the vehicle, years later. A sympathetic comms officer let her hear that recording. His voice, steady under fire, etched into her memory. She carried it every time her hands gripped a wheel or weapon. At FOB Kestrel, none of that mattered. Keller saw only a support soldier. Her ASVAB scores could have sent her to intelligence or medical. Instead, she chose 80 AM motor transport operator. A waste. They said. But Jenna knew better. She'd studied every convoy ambush from Vietnam to Afghanistan. The pattern was always the same chaos. Confusion, command collapsing, the one variable, the driver's first 30 seconds. As the convoy prepared to roll out en route Viper, Jenna checked her mirrors for the 100th time. Quiet. Unnoticed. What no one else caught was the calculation in her eyes, the silent weight of her father's final words pushing her forward. And ahead of them waited Serpent's Pass. The choke point, the perfect kill zone. The place Keller believed a driver would break. The place Jenna Morales was about to prove him wrong. She wasn't just a driver. She was the storm waiting at the wheel. Before we move into part 2, let me ask you, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or base in the comments. You're watching stories that salute real courage, real voices. Hit subscribe now, so you won't miss the next chapter. The morning air at FOB Kestrel was sharp, dust rising with every boot step as the convoy gathered inside the operations tent. Maps stretched across folding tables, red markers slashed over choke points, Route Viper, Serpent's Pass. Everyone knew the names. Few understood what they meant. Sergeant First Class Marcus Keller, sleeves rolled tight, voice cutting through the room, walked them through the assignments, lead vehicle staffed by combat arms, overwatch a veteran gunner. Then his eyes found Jenna Morales' name. A pause. A smirk. Third vehicle, Keller said flatly. Middle of the pack. Keep her behind the real guns. The air shifted. Some soldiers traded glances, half smiles hidden. Staff Sergeant Adebayo Ace Williams stepped forward. Sir, with all respect, Morales knows this route better than anyone. Put her up front. Keller's eyes narrowed. We need fighters in the lead, not motor pool drivers. End of discussion. The words landed hard. But Jenna didn't flinch. She sat still, eyes forward. The fire banked inside. Keller thought he'd silenced her. He'd only sharpened her resolve. After the briefing, while others grumbled about the heat or swapped jokes, Jenna moved with quiet precision. She ran her hands along the seams of her Oshkosh M-ATV, checked the ring mount where the MK-19 sat waiting. Standard load 500 rounds. That wasn't enough, not for Root Viper. Methodically. She hauled in 4 extra cans, stacking them under the dash and into soft racks, roughly another 400 to 600 rounds, bringing her total close to 1,000. To Keller, it might look like paranoia. To Jenna, it was discipline insurance bought in brass and steel. Private Liam Hart was already wrestling with his gear, straps twisted, helmet loose, barely out of training, and Keller had put him on her turret. His hands trembled just trying to seat a belt. Jenna leaned in, voice calm. The feed can jam if you slam it. Keep rhythm. Short bursts. Keller's voice cut across the lot. Morales drive. Leave the shooting to soldiers who know what they're doing. Hart's eyes flicked down. Ashamed. Jenna caught the look. She said nothing, but inside she knew he wasn't ready. And if he froze, it would fall to her. Engines turned over. Diesel rumble filling the air. The convoy lined up and rolled toward Root Viper. Dust swirled. Radios crackled. Jenna checked her mirrors one last time. In the glass, she caught her own reflection steady. Silent. Waiting. And on the ridgelines miles ahead, enemy fighters were already digging in. The convoy slid into the valley like pieces falling into a trap. Serpent's Pass. On a map, it was just a narrow stretch, but Jenna Morales had traced it 100 times, memorized the blind turns, the ridgelines, the choke point. To most, it looked like empty ground. To her, it was a kill zone. She tightened her grip on the wheel of the M-ATV, scanning shadows, a shepherd moving his flock too early, fresh motorcycle tracks slashing across the dust, rocks dislodged high above. Every sign screamed the same word, ambush. Maintain spacing. Keller's voice crackled over the net. Jenna's jaw clenched. He thought spacing would save them. She knew better terrain was already against them. The lead vehicle rounded a bend. Then the valley erupted. An RPG streaked from the ridge, slamming into the M-ATV at point. Fire and black smoke swallowed it whole, the blast echoing like thunder between the cliffs. Contact front. Contact front voices howled over comms. Chaos detonated. Automatic fire poured down from both ridges. A PKP team hammered from the east, each burst rattling against armor plates. Across the way, a cord heavy machine gun pounded like a drum beat, every round punching metal with the weight of a hammer. Inside Jenna's truck, Private Liam Hart froze, his hands locked on the MK-19 grips, knuckles white. The launcher barked once, jammed, fell silent. Hart's eyes went wide, chest heaving, his breathing grew ragged, lips trembling. Fear had already claimed him. Rounds spattered the windshield, spiderwebbing ballistic glass. Radios screamed with conflicting orders. Soldiers yelled, panicked, each voice tripping over the next. And then, for Jenna, the world slowed. The gunfire dulled to a distant hum, like sound underwater. In the quiet, her father's voice surfaced steady. Certain drive for the angle. Get down, she snapped, yanking Hart by his vest and shoving him into the passenger well. He curled, shaking, eyes wide. She didn't look back, from the footwell. Hart fought to steady his breathing. I can feed, he forced out. On me, Jenna said, never lifting her eyes from the sight. It wasn't courage yet, but it was a beginning. Jenna vaulted into the turret, movements sharp, practiced. Her hands closed around the grips, not like they belonged there. They tightened, as if this was the moment she had been waiting for all her life. Below. Hart fumbled for an ammo can, dragging it close, fingers finding the starter tab as he pressed himself small against the armor. Through the FLIR sight, The night came alive in white heat. 3-man RPG team, crouched and reloading. She squeezed. The MK-19 thundered, grenades arced high, burst across the ridge in rolling blooms of fire. Figures vanished in dust. She swung left, walking belts into the cord's muzzle flashes. The heavy gun sputtered, then fell silent. "Morales, what the hell are you doing?" Keller's voice broke over the net. She didn't answer. Orders had already drowned in fire. The only law now was initiative, dropping back into the driver's seat. She wrenched the wheel hard, slamming the M-ATV broadside, its armor angled into the storm. Dust billowed as she jammed the throttle, positioning for the unthinkable charging straight into the kill zone. The enemy expected fear. Jenna Morales was about to give them fire. They thought the convoy would freeze. They thought fear would lock every wheel. Instead, Jenna Morales slammed the accelerator, the M-ATV lunging forward, tires clawing at the dirt as she drove straight into the kill zone. Tracers ripped past, sparks clawing at her armor, but she refused to let the valley write the ending. She would. The MK-19 barked overhead, thunder rolling against the cliffs. Bursts of grenades arced high, detonating into rolling fireballs along the ridges. Suppression, not panic short, deliberate belts that bought seconds of life. Through the FLIR optics, the battlefield burned in shades of heat. Fighters scrambling on the northern slope. A 3-man command cell hunched over radios. She walked rounds across their position, tearing out the ambush's brain. "On comms," Keller's voice cracked, not commanding, but raw with panic. "Morales, break off God, you're going to kill us all?" His words sputtered into silence as if he no longer believed them himself. She ignored him. Orders had already burned away. Instead of climbing in and out of the turret again, Jenna dropped her hand on Hart's shoulder. "Feed it. Fire it," she ordered. Hart's face was pale, but he nodded, slamming a belt into the tray. The launcher roared again, his bursts shaky at first, then steadier, as she drove the vehicle into position. For the first time, the weapon was alive under his hands. Jenna kept the wheel steady, angling the M-ATV to shield the convoy's middle trucks. Each time Hart faltered, she called corrections short bursts. Walk it left. Keep the rhythm. The fear in his eyes hadn't vanished, but something else flickered there now, resolve. "Bravo, 2 M240, pushing left," Ace Williams's voice cut across the chaos. From the next truck, the machine gun's rattling burst swept an eastern ledge, ripping open a lane. The convoy wasn't just surviving anymore, it was striking back. But the math was still brutal. Dozens of fighters remained. Muzzles kept flashing. Belts chewed away fast. Hart slapped a fresh can into place, shouted, up and fired again. Jenna caught the line of his shoulders, still tense, but fighting. Then she saw it. On the ridge, past cover, a cluster of steady white signatures. Crates stacked at a cave mouth. Runners shoving RPG warheads. Mortar tubes, belts of PKP ammo, an ammunition cache. Her pulse hammered. To reach it meant breaking cover. 20 seconds across open ground under 3 fields of fire, in combat. 20 seconds was eternity. This time she didn't hand the order to Hart. "My shot," she said, locking the wheel, bracing the vehicle. Hart ducked low, feeding belts without hesitation. She vaulted into the turret, not for every target, but for this one. The decisive strike. The reticle settled. She squeezed. The first grenades slammed home. Then came the chain reaction RPG propellant igniting. Mortar rounds cooking off. PKP belts snapping like serpents of fire. The ridge became its own executioner. Detonating inward. Shredding fighters with their own stockpile. Flame boiled out of the cave, fragments scything across enemy lines. Fighters stumbled into retreat. Serpent's pass had turned against them. And Jenna Morales wasn't done. The valley lay in ruins. Smoke curled from shattered ridges, the echoes of explosions fading into silence. Where moments before, the air had been alive with gunfire. Now only the groan of damaged engines and the low hum of radios filled the pass. Above, the thumping rotors of UH-60M Blackhawks broke through the haze. Door gunners leaned out, sweeping the ridges with suppressive bursts as medics repelled into the kill zone. The convoy that should have been wiped out was still standing shaken, scarred, but alive. Private Liam Hart climbed from the passenger well, face pale, hands still trembling, but his eyes never leaving Jenna. He knew what had saved him wasn't just her marksmanship, but the moment she'd dragged him down, forced him to breathe, and later trusted him to keep the feed running when it mattered. For Hart, she wasn't just a driver. She was the anchor that pulled him back into the fight. Nearby, Ace Williams leaned against his M240 barrel, still smoking. His bursts had carved open a lane, giving the convoy breathing space when the pass felt like a coffin. Even in the chaos. He glanced toward Jenna's truck with a nod acknowledgement that her charge had turned a slaughter into survival. And Keller. He stood off to the side as the Blackhawks kicked dust into the air, his face drawn tight. For once, the man who barked orders had nothing to say. When Jenna's eyes flicked toward him, he dropped his gaze, adjusting his gear as if it suddenly mattered more than meeting her stare. He would file for transfer within the week, unable to live inside the story he had tried to deny. The after-action review credited Jenna Morales with the decisive blow destroying the enemy cache and breaking the ambush. But it noted, 2. The teamwork Hart keeping her weapon alive, Williams suppressing from the flank. 34 enemy combatants eliminated. Not a single American fatality. A battle that should have been a massacre became one of the most lopsided engagements of the deployment. Months later, the ripples spread, convoy doctrine rewritten, training modules updated, driver initiative emphasized in every course for the first time. The Army taught 88Ms that they weren't passengers in someone else's fight. They were the first line of defense. And at Riverside Range, the same dirt where she had grown up under her uncle's hard lessons, Jenna Morales stood before a new generation of soldiers. Behind her, a Mk-19 sat in the sun, its metal scarred but unbowed. She ran a hand across its receiver and looked her students in the eye. In combat, she told them quietly, there are no support roles, only soldiers who are ready and those who aren't. Silence filled the classroom. They believed her. They had to. The ambush at Serpent's Pass wasn't just a story of fire and steel. It was proof of something deeper that the underestimated, the overlooked, the ones dismissed as background, could hold the line when no one else would. Jenna Rook Morales didn't just survive the kill zone, she redefined it. And her story leaves a truth that echoes far beyond the battlefield. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They may be the storm that saves you,